There are moments when someone says something small, maybe a question, maybe a tone, and suddenly your chest tightens, your hands shake, your face heats up, not because of the words, but because of what they woke up. A memory you thought you forgot, a version of you, smaller, quieter, helpless. You laugh it off. You tell yourself it's silly. You're grown, you're rational, but still, your voice trembles. Your stomach churns. You say you're fine, but you're not. You're 6 again. You're 8, you're 10, and you're back in that room. Why is it so easy for the past to hijack the present? Why do we become children in moments that demand the adult version of us? Because the child never left. Because the child is the one who reacts, not you. You carry them everywhere. The versions of you. The one who was yelled at. The one who was ignored. The one who had to be perfect. The one who was never enough. They're all here, sitting quietly until someone says the wrong thing. And then they rise, not as memories, but as reactions, as silence, as rage, as panic, as the sudden urge to please. You think you're mad at your partner, but it's not them. It's your father who never listened. You think you're scared of failing, but it's not about now. It's about that moment in class when you froze and the whole room laughed. This is the genius and the curse of the unconscious. It remembers. Long after you've tried to forget, it remembers. It stores it all. Every shame, every bruise, every unmet need. And when life presses the right button, the reaction is automatic. Because it was never processed. It was never understood. It was buried. And what we bury does not die. It waits. So you flinch when someone raises their voice. You shut down when someone walks away. You beg for love, even when you know it's unworthy. Not because you're weak, but because a child is living your adult life. He doesn't know he's grown. He doesn't know the danger is gone. He doesn't know you're allowed to leave now, to say no now, to be safe now. He's still reacting to ghosts, still living in yesterday. And until you meet him, until you hold his hand, until you look into his terrified eyes and tell him it's over, he'll keep running your life.
Do you ever feel like someone finally sees the part of you you've always hidden? Here, you don't have to hide anymore. You're safe now. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel so we can keep walking this path together. Thank you.
Reactions are not random. They're rehearsals. Over and over again, the same wounds perform the same plays. Different people, same roles. You're not crazy, you're conditioned. You're not overreacting. You're overwhelmed by echoes. The worst part is this. The more you judge your reactions, the more you abandon that child again. You call him dramatic. You shame him for being too much. And that shame becomes another layer of the mask. But healing begins the moment you pause and ask, what age is this reaction? Whose voice am I hearing? What am I really defending? The answer is never now. It's always before. You are not weak for reacting. You are carrying someone who was never given the chance to express what he felt. You are living beside someone who still waits to be seen. He doesn't want to ruin your life. He just wants to be heard. And when you finally sit beside him, when you finally let him speak, you will realize it wasn't rage, it wasn't fear, it wasn't anxiety, it was grief. Grief for what you didn't get, for what you needed and never received. And from that grief, if you allow it, will rise a new response. Not a reaction, a response. from a place of presence, not the past. So when your body shakes again, when the tears come, when the fear tightens your chest, don't ask, "What's wrong with me?" Ask, "What is he trying to say?" And you'll hear it. Please don't leave me behind again. You don't need to be fixed. You need to be met. You need to go back, not to stay, but to bring him home. The next time someone triggers you, remember, it's not them, it's him. And he's still waiting. There is a silence that screams louder than anger. It's the silence after you've been dismissed, ignored, abandoned, not by strangers, but by the people who should have held you. You learn not to speak. You learn not to need. You learn to shrink your hunger until it becomes invisible. And people call you strong. They call you independent. They admire the way nothing ever seems to touch you, but they don't see what it cost. Behind that strength is a child who waited too long to be chosen. And now, every time someone pulls away, doesn't text back, forgets, cancels, or simply doesn't look deeply into you, something cracks open again. That silence returns. The silence that raised you. The silence that taught you you were too much or not enough. And your reaction isn't to scream. It's to disappear, to pull back, to detach, to punish yourself before they get the chance to. But what if you didn't need to run? What if that silence wasn't the end, but the beginning of hearing something deeper? You were trained in emotional starvation, not by choice, but by repetition. The people who should have modeled presence only mirrored absence. They were there in body, but missing in spirit. Or they were loud in control, but quiet in connection. So you developed a radar. You scanned constantly. Is it safe? Is it stable? Is it me? You overanalyzed tone. You decoded glances. You memorized micro-behaviors like they were maps to survival. And all of this became normal. Not healthy, just familiar. So when someone offers softness, you flinch. When someone stays, you suspect. Because the body remembers the silence more than the noise. You tell yourself, you're fine being alone. You say you're self-sufficient. But under that is an ache you've never named. A longing to be met without needing to perform. Every unmet need became a mask. Every disappointment turned into distance. You built a fortress out of fragments of yourself, hoping someone would notice the cracks, but most don't. And the pain deepens. You find yourself choosing people who replicate the absence, not because you enjoy suffering, but because suffering is familiar. It feels like home. You chase emotionally unavailable people because you were raised by them. You chase validation because it was the currency of love in your childhood. And when someone is finally present, you sabotage, you ghost, you numb, you pull away, not because you don't want them, but because the child inside of you doesn't believe they'll stay. And belief is stronger than logic. So the pattern continues. You try to heal through repetition, hoping that maybe this time, if you're perfect enough, quiet enough, sexy enough, useful enough, they'll finally choose you. But healing doesn't come from being chosen. Healing comes when you realize you were never supposed to audition for love. Love that must be earned is not love, it's control. So pause. Sit with the silence. Listen not to what others say, but to what your wounds whisper. They're not saying chase. They're saying remember. Remember the first time you felt unseen. The first time you were told to toughen up. The first time you cried alone. That moment is where the pattern began. And the pattern only ends when you go back. Not to relive it, but to rescue the version of you still waiting. No one is coming for her, but you can. She doesn't need fixing. She needs witnessing. She needs to be told she didn't imagine it, that it was real, that it hurt, that she deserved better. Only then will the silence lose its power. Only then will you stop abandoning yourself every time someone else walks away. Emotional hunger is louder than rage, deeper than grief. It shows up not in tears, but in patterns, in choices, in the way you love, in the way you leave. And when you finally trace the ache back to its origin, when you sit in that dark room inside your chest and hold the child who thought she was unlovable, you will feel it. A warmth, a release, a crack in the silence. And that's where you begin. Not with noise, not with revenge, not with trying to make someone else pay for what they failed to give, but with meeting yourself fully, without shame, without pretending. We are not broken. We are waiting. There comes a moment when you stop running, and you realize you're not running from them. You're running from yourself, not from your power, but from the version of you who remembers too much, the one who still waits by the door, the one who still flinches when it's quiet, the one who still doesn't know if they were ever truly wanted. This isn't about fixing your relationships. It's about meeting the one relationship you've never dared to face, the one with your own shadow. The shadow isn't evil. It isn't darkness. It isn't bad. It's everything that had to be hidden for you to survive. The parts of you that were too sensitive, too intense, too expressive, too needy. The parts that were punished. The parts that were mocked. The parts that were told, not like that. So you tucked them away. You learned how to perform instead. You learned to be who they liked, who they needed, who they loved. But all that you exiled, those real raw parts, did not vanish. They became your shadow. And now, when someone gets close, your shadow shows up, not to ruin things, but to remind you of what you abandoned. It comes out as jealousy, as rage, as insecurity, as the voice that says, they'll leave anyway. It sabotages not because it's evil, but because it's in pain. Every time you silence your truth to be accepted, you feed the shadow. Every time you betray yourself to keep peace, you deepen the shadow. It doesn't want control, it wants connection. But here's the trick. The shadow doesn't speak in words. It speaks in patterns. It makes you repeat things. Not because you're broken, but because the story hasn't ended. It wants resolution, and it knows you can't heal what you won't look at. So it brings you people who trigger you, situations that push you, emotions that scare you, not to destroy you, but to invite you back to yourself. You think you're choosing them, but sometimes your shadow is choosing for you. So how do you break free? Not by fighting it, but by listening. What does your jealousy actually say? What does your rage actually mourn? What does your fear actually protect? Beneath every destructive impulse is a part of you that was once pure, once kind, once open, before the world told you that being real was unsafe, before they made you shrink, before you had to become someone else just to be loved. This is your work now, to meet what you've avoided, to touch what hurts, to look in the mirror and finally say, I see you, and mean it, because that shadow, It's not your enemy. It's your oldest ally, and it's been waiting. Your shadow doesn't ruin you. Denying it does. It's not the rage that breaks your life. It's pretending you don't feel it. It's not the need that destroys your relationships. It's acting like you don't need anything at all. You don't need to be more light. You need to be more whole. And wholeness only comes when you reclaim what you disowned. So the next time you feel triggered, don't escape. Trace it. Ask it what it wants. And when you hear the answer, don't run. That's not your weakness. That's your return. Have you ever smiled while secretly screaming inside? Have you ever nodded, agreed, played along, while your soul whispered no over and over again? That's not peace. That's self-abandonment. And the most dangerous thing is not when the world hurts you. It's when you begin to hurt yourself in the name of being loved. Because once you learn to betray your truth for belonging, you forget what your truth even sounds like. You become applause. You become agreement. You become the echo of what others want. And one day, you look in the mirror, and there's no one there. Only a well-trained reflection. Let's talk about the price of being liked. Let's talk about the self that dies quietly, beautifully, invisibly. Because that's the part of you that needs resurrection. You learned early that love had conditions. Be quiet, be nice, be helpful, don't get mad, don't be messy, don't need too much. Every time you broke one of those invisible rules, you felt it. The coldness, the withdrawal, the silence. And that silence didn't just hurt, it trained you. It taught you that being loved meant being less of yourself. So you started performing. You smiled when you wanted to scream. You apologized for having boundaries. You praised others while your own soul went unnoticed. And this is the most dangerous cage, the one that's invisible, the one made of approval. Because people clap, people love you for your compliance. You become the favorite, the peacemaker, the selfless one. But you feel it, don't you? In the quiet, in the dark, in the mirror. You feel the weight of disappearing. You don't say what you want because you don't want to seem selfish. You don't walk away from what hurts you because you don't want to upset anyone. You don't speak your truth because you've been trained to think your truth is too much. This isn't kindness. This isn't emotional maturity. This is fear. Fear of abandonment. Fear of rejection. Fear that if you stop performing, no one will stay. But here's the truth. No one told you. Every time you abandon yourself to be loved, you teach your nervous system that love is dangerous. You make your own truth a threat. And then you wonder why you're anxious all the time. Why your relationships feel hollow. Why you feel alone even when you're surrounded by people. Because you're there, but you're not. The mask is. The role is. But your essence, your wildness, your grief, your joy, buried somewhere beneath layers of should. You've performed for so long, you forgot how to feel. But the body remembers. It remembers the silence. It remembers the suppression. It remembers the weight of being perfect. And one day, it speaks in panic, in fatigue, in depression, in rage. Not to punish you, but to bring you back. Because underneath the performance is a person, a real one. Messy, bold, soft, loud, sacred. That person is still alive, and they are tired of waiting. You don't have to be everything for everyone. You don't have to be agreeable to be loved. You don't have to disappear to belong. You just have to come back to your own voice, back to your own truth, back to the version of you that existed before the world told you who to be. And it will be terrifying. People will resist, some will leave, some will call you difficult. But that's not your burden to carry. Your job is not to be understood by everyone. Your job is to no longer misunderstand yourself. Because peace doesn't come from being liked. It comes from being real. There is a strange kind of grief that follows freedom. When you finally stop apologizing for who you are. When you walk away from what once defined you. When you stop trying to earn the love you already deserve. The silence after that decision feels heavier than the noise you left. Because the moment you reclaim yourself, you begin to mourn all the years you were gone. You begin to realize how much of your life was shaped by fear. Fear of being alone. Fear of not being enough. Fear of not being wanted. And suddenly, you're not just healing. You're grieving the life that could have been if only you had known you were already worthy. So let's not just talk about growth. Let's talk about what you lose when you finally come home to yourself. Let's talk about the death before the rebirth. You thought healing would feel like light, but sometimes it feels like loss. You lose the friendships built on your silence. You lose the relationships built on your pretending. You lose the admiration of people who only loved the version of you that didn't need anything. And it hurts, because even if those things weren't right, they were real. They were your world. And walking away from them is like tearing out parts of yourself that you spent years cultivating. But you don't grow by adding more. You grow by releasing what no longer fits. And the truth is, parts of you don't fit anymore. The people pleaser, the peacekeeper, the overachiever, the version of you who performed so well that you forgot you were acting. Letting go of that identity is terrifying. Because even though it kept you stuck, it also kept you safe. Safe from rejection, safe from confrontation, safe from the unbearable feeling of not being enough. But safety is not the same as aliveness. And if you want to feel alive, you have to risk the death of your mask. That's what healing really is. A death of illusions, of personas, of attachments that were never love, and that death must be grieved. Don't rush past that part. Don't bypass the ache just to arrive at empowerment. Because the empowerment you seek isn't built on avoidance. It's built on ashes. You have to let yourself fall apart. You have to let the tears come without censoring them. You have to let the rage move through you without apologizing. You have to sit in the emptiness without trying to fill it too fast. That emptiness isn't punishment. It's space. Space for the new you to arrive. But before she comes, something in you must die. And yes, it will feel lonely. But that loneliness is holy. Because it is the first time you are choosing to be with yourself. Fully, honestly, unconditionally. No masks, no performance, no striving, just you. And that is where your power begins. Not in becoming someone new, but in finally allowing the truth of who you've always been. Rebirth is quiet. It doesn't come with fireworks. It comes with stillness, with choosing yourself even when no one is clapping, with saying no even when your voice shakes, with walking away, not because you're angry, but because you're clear. You don't heal by adding more light. You heal by welcoming your dark, the grief, the guilt, the lost years. You hold them, you honor them, you let them burn. And from those ashes, something deeper rises. Not a better version of you, but a truer one. And she is not here to be understood. She is here to be real. So the next time it hurts, the next time it breaks, the next time it feels like you've lost everything, remember, this is not the end. This is the return. And from now on, you don't live to be loved. You live because you are loved. Welcome home.